Let me welcome everybody to the next video in our class. This one is on the book of Philippians. This is also part of the prison epistles, but remember from the last discussion, it's a little bit separate from them, and so I want to deal with this one separately than the other three prison epistles, which are including Philippians, are Ephesians, Colossians, and Philemon. So here, Paul's authorship of Philippians is universally hailed. There's a lot of external attribution to from early church fathers. Even the heretic, false teacher Marcion, includes it in his canon. Now, Paul is going to write to the church of Philippi. Philippi is located up here near Thessalonica. This is the Macedonia region. Remember, this is modern-day Greece. Over here we would have Asia Minor, modern-day Turkey. And again, this is kind of the heel of Italy. This is a road leading into the old part of the Philippian city of Philippi area. The city of Philippi itself was founded around 350 BC, and Paul visited there first time on his second missionary journey, and then again on his third missionary journey. But this time he's writing to them from prison while he is in Rome. Now, where Paul is writing from, we've talked about this a little bit before. There's three options for Paul being in prison: Ephesus, Caesarea, and Rome. We talked about most likely he is in Rome because from the context, Paul is in prison. We know that. He faced a trial that could end poorly, which was not the case for the Caesarean imprisonment. It's actually from Caesarea where he left to go to Rome. He is near a praetorium, which is a open-air kind of coliseum. Timothy was with him. Timothy was not with him when he was in Caesarea or Ephesus. And he's sharing the gospel from around, which is not from the other two. And there were some trips made between Paul and the city of Philippi while he was in prison. Now, there's a section in your notes that deals with the travel difficulties and Paul's travels. I am going to, for this section, I'm going to skip over those notes, and even in my slides, not because they're not important, but because I just do not want to take the time in this section to talk about it, and there's nothing that is on the exam that would involve the section of notes. Now, Paul is probably writing around 62. It's towards the end of his prison time there in Rome. He has sent for Epaphroditus, who'd been in Rome for a short time. The repercussions of Paul being in prison are now widespread. Paul expects a trial to be soon. He also expects to maybe even be released, which would point to a later in Paul's first Roman prison imprisonment. He's actually writing to them to thank them for a gift that he had received. He was planning to send Timothy to them, and he was even say, "Hey, I'm going to come by when I get released." And then he says, "Hey, send Epaphroditus back to me once I want to know what's going on when he's sick." He's also writing to them to give them specific instructions, especially on Christian unity. He's talking to them about being the example. I love the book of Philippians. There's so many great passages that come out of the book of Philippians itself. While there, Paul warns about false teachers. He gives them some news from Rome. He pleads for unity, to be in there together. One of the great sections of Paul's unity comes from Philippians chapter 2, which is about the mind of Christ. And he says, listen, my situation in Rome, what's going on in Philippi, he says, listen, you cannot be divided. You cannot have self-centered groups. The attitude of church and the individuals is to be heavenly oriented. Chapter 3, he talks about pressing towards the mark for the prize of the high calling of God, leaving those things which are behind, pressing forward. Think the same. Be together. Be unified as a church. And this letter is addressing the issue of unity within the church. He says there in chapter 1, verse 27, only conduct yourselves in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ, so that whether I come and see you or remain absent, I will hear of you that you are standing firm in one spirit, with one mind, striving together for the faith of the gospel. Now, he does continues to have contact with the churches. Paul continued to accept financial support, and at least 2 occasions while he was in Thessalonica, he got support. Once while he was in Corinth, they sent him a gift in Rome. So he has a great connection to the church of Philippi, and Paul sends to them regularly some messengers. And he actually intended to send Timothy to Philippi. He will end up sending him to Ephesus later on. But Paul himself, he wants to come and see them. And Paul had a great love for this church. He had a great passion. Again, for me personally, I love the book of Philippians. A lot of great verses come out. Philippians 1:21, for me to live is Christ, to die is gain. The passage out of Philippians chapter 2, let this mind of Christ be in you. He'll also go on later to say in verse 10 through 11, that at the name of Jesus every knee shall bow, those in heaven and under, who are also under the earth. And so it's a great book to a church that Paul visited that's really helped him, support him in his work. There's the key verses. Again, notice Philippians is also coming at the end of the book of Acts, along with the other prison epistles. The book of Philippians and the prison epistle books will be the last books that will be included in your outline that you're working on for Paul's missionary journeys. And you see the occasion there to talk to them about their gift, and also to encourage unity, and to follow the selfless example of Christ, having the mind of Christ. As always, if you have questions following the video, please do not hesitate to give me a call.